Now we need to take a look at what happens when you have a monopsony. So you still have your demand for labor, which is your marginal revenue product, and you have your supply for labor. But what's going to be unique about this is there's going to be a separate marginal resource cost curve. And the reason for this is because in order for the firm to hire more workers, they got to raise wages. And when they do that, they're raising them for everyone. And when that happens, their marginal resource cost increases. And so in order, it's the reverse of a monopoly. A monopolist must lower price to increase output, and therefore it lowers its marginal revenue. Here they must raise wages to attract more workers, and it increases their marginal resource costs. So what we have here is where MRC equals MRP. So if we go straight down, here is the quantity hired in the monopsony at QM. Now the wage rate, you go from this point where MRC equals MRP down to the supply curve and then over. This is how you determine the wage rate for a monopsonist. And so they will produce at WM and QM. Now compare this to a perfectly competitive labor market, and they would produce here. And so perfectly competitive labor markets are going to be at WC, and they are going to be at QC. So perfectly competitive labor markets have a higher wage, and they hire more workers. A monopsonist is going to hire fewer workers and offer a lower wage. So that's the key difference there between a monopsonist. They're a wage maker. Now, when you add a union into this becomes a nightmare. This is what they call a bilateral monopoly. And we know the union wants obviously a higher wage, and they want a higher wage than what is offered in the regular market. And we know that they can probably get away with a wage that is going to be where MRC equals MRP. That's what they're going to probably want. So the union is going to be up here. But notice the union isn't really hiring more workers. They just want a wage that is up here. Now the problem is we can't determine where this wage is going to be when you have a union with a monopsonistic employer. So it's going to be somewhere in between. It just depends on who has the better collective bargaining position. If the union has a better bargaining position, it's going to be somewhere up here between WU and WC. If management has a better bargaining position, it's going to be down here, somewhere between WC and WM. And so that's what's going to happen. It's going to be somewhere in here. But in either case, we can't determine that. It just depends on who has the better bargaining position. So this is what they call a bilateral monopoly. When you have a union with a monopsonistic employer or someone who is a wage maker.